Scaffold, 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 it's the greatest thing. Scaffold, 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 you make it with some string. Hello there and welcome back to AlphaCraft. I'm over at Spawn Island, Northern Frontier Edition, and here we have the Northern Nether Portal, built by the one and only Frillioth. Now the reason that we're here is I've been using this portal a lot lately, and aside from it being a beautiful build, something struck me about it every time I used it, and that's, it just doesn't feel tied to the landscape. What I mean by that is, it kind of looks like someone flew it in by chopper and airdropped it into place. Now, that's not a criticism of the build. I mean, all builds have that problem until you find a way to make them part of their surroundings. One of the issues we have is how close the portal is to that hill on the left. I mean, it is literally right next to it. So I'll have to scale that back, but I'm also concerned with how little real estate there is on the seaside of the build. I have a rough idea of what I'm going to do, and I'm going to need more space to work with on all sides. And with the power of editing, we can see that a lot of landscaping has been done to pull the hill back a little and to extend the shoreline out quite a bit. So now that we have a little room to work with, let's get this thing going! Now, when I say I have a rough idea of what I want to do here, that may be a little overselling it. I know the platform needs to be large enough to look good with the size of the portal. And I'm thinking of a square platform with, maybe a circle inside of it binding the two side towers, maybe some trees, park benches, just something that grounds the whole thing to the landscape and looks like one complete build when done and not two separate builds pasted together. So to achieve that, I'm going to use a lot of grays around the stairs and change over to black at some point. The one thing I do know is I don't want to use gradients, mainly because they are way overused these days. I think gradients have their place in builds, mainly on very large, mega-style builds where the gradients look like shading from a distance, but they still look good up close. The problem with gradients, at least to me, is that when you do that on a smaller build, the build just ends up looking a bit of a jumbled mess up close, like if you're building something the size of a villager house and you use a gradient, it ends up looking like you couldn't decide what color paint to use when you're standing right in front of it. Now, I do like variated block palettes, and I used one here. The distinction being sticking within the same rough color scheme, but use the textures of the individual blocks to break up that Lego effect from using a single block in a build. Now, I do need to re-stress that I did not build the portal. Frillioth did that, but it's impossible for me to show off the platform without showing the portal. The entire goal here is to make it all look like it's one big build and was planned to look like that from the beginning. Overall, I like what I see, but the square edges of the platform is bugging me a little, and I'm starting to think the hill is still too close. So let me think about it a bit while I show you something else that happened on the server recently. If you caught Stina Rose's last video, you'll know that my neighbor Spiderweb Ninja noticed that someone had stolen a TV from her house. Now, of course, that was horrible to hear, that someone would do such a thing, but I didn't really think much of it at the time until I stopped in at my own house to top off supplies and noticed this. My favorite gardening spoon is missing! I've been burgled! Burgled, I say! Who would do such a thing? This is just unacceptable. But, thankfully I had some cameras installed on the place recently. Not because of crime or anything. It's just that, when a person starts getting a reputation, through no fault of their own, you understand, for, pranking, it's best to be a little paranoid and, try to cover your back. Anyway, it's not important. The point is, I was checking through the footage and I saw this. Can you believe that? Someone actually took my spoon! My favorite spoon! Who would do this? Who? Now, I don't know if anyone else has been having issues, but I'm going to start talking to my neighbors and see if they noticed anything going on. But while I do that, let's head back to the platform and see what I ended up doing there. So, after much thought, I decided to bite the bullet and pull that hill way back. This way, it doesn't look like the hill got in the way and the platform and portal were always intended to be that size. I also ended up rounding the corners to break up the Lego shapiness of it all and then added some triangles along the center points of the platform to break up the shape. Now let me be the first to say it was never my intention to make the platform look like a giant jigsaw puzzle piece, but that said, I think this is a big improvement over the plain square shape. I like the way it turned out, but there is a small part of me that is bugged by the puzzle piece thing. I might still add some small trees in the corners, but for now, it's done. Be sure to let me know what you think in the comments below. Now I've been talking to my neighbors, and it seems they've been noticing something strange going on as well. In fact, the neighbors of a Viking nature shared this with me. It's not easy to see what the burglar took, but I think we can be sure of one thing. They definitely took something. I'll keep talking to my neighbors, but it seems like we may have someone with sticky fingers running around Alpha by water. Hopefully by now, more of them have installed some cameras so we can catch whoever this devious and dastardly derelict could possibly be. So recently, and I say recently, but you know, I'm behind on my videos, so just bear with me on this point, okay? So recently, we changed over to 121.6, and at least I think it was .6. It could have been .5. Who knows? It was the one where they added all the new plants. So since I already had plans to open a flower shop and there were new flowers, I started collecting all the new plants. Up here on the hill at my base, I already have all the other little farms, like here is the pale hanging moss, and here are the hanging roots, and over here is the glow lichen farm. A little further up the hill, we have the sea pickle farm. I added the new front to it to make it look a bit more complete than it did last time. And over here is the new firefly bush, just plain old bush, and short and tall dry grass farm. This setup will also work for the new wildflowers as well as the pink petals that we already had. It should be said, I don't have any clue what others did for these, as this time around I tried to see if I could figure it out for myself. I mean, this isn't complicated on any level, I just wanted to see if I could do all of them in one farm instead of dedicated farms to each different plant. And thankfully, it was pretty easy. Here in the back, we have the standard observer clock setup checking for plant growth, with the on-off option to make it server-friendly. Over the top, we have 2 dispensers for the bone meal. For the bushes, you only need 1 dispenser, but the second one is needed for the tall, dry grass. So the way it works is, if I want short dry grass, I take all the bone meal out of the second dispenser and just target this little gap here where I'm aiming at open air but still connecting with the hitbox on the grass. If I want the tall dry grass, toss some bone meal in number 2 and let her rip. If I want a firefly bush, I just replace the grass with the bush and we're off and running. It couldn't be any simpler, and it is a farm that does 6 different plants in a very small footprint. Now I know the redstone here is as simple as it can possibly be, but I'm still kind of proud of the setup. Ah, there you are. It seems most of my neighbors are away on vacation at the moment, so since we don't have any sort of police-type thing on the server to investigate stuff like this, I decided I'd do the neighborly thing and help them out and install some block cams on their houses to see if I can catch this vile and villainous villain. For the first couple of days, there was no signs of them, but on the third day, the camera over at Jareen's house caught this. There, did you see it? That burglar clearly burgled some sort of, they burgled something of great importance, I'm sure. But that's not all, folks. The camera over at Bunny's house recorded this. This criminal has clearly lost his or her mind. They stole Bunny's front door. And there's even more. There was even more. I was able to access the camera over at Richard's Holy Rollers Casino and Buffet and saw this. I just can't believe my eyes. We have a veritable crime spree on our hands. If only there was someone around here whose job it was to do something about things like this. Ah, well, until that happens, take a quick look at this exciting video. Now we get to the Cactus Flower Farm. This one they made a bit frustrating to collect. The important thing to know is Mojang, in their sometimes questionable wisdom, decided to make the hitbox on the cactus flowers smaller than a full block. The reason this is a problem is all the old designs for cactus farms somehow prevent the flower from growing, while also not breaking the flowers when another block is placed beside them. You know, like it happens with cactus. I'm sure they have a logic behind this, but it ends up leading to having to use pistons and hoppers to automate the flower collection, and I didn't want to do that. So I went back to my do-everything manual roots and ended up playing around with a semi-manual design where I step on a pressure plate and it breaks all the cactus in the farm whether it has flowers on it or not. Since I AFK a lot while I work, this would be fine for me. All the cacti grow to their full height while I'm working, and then I come in, break them, collect the cactus and flowers, replant, and go back to AFK. Since I didn't want to have 50 pistons all firing on the same tick, I set them to go off in series, like this. That looks pretty cool, right? I mean, it's a very silly way to farm cactus flowers, but there's something about it I like. Now this is when the devil on my shoulder started whispering in my ear. You know, things like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if there was more of them? And like, I wonder how many I can get away with before the server starts to react. You know, things that a good little boy or girl should never consider doing. Which is why I didn't do it. Nope, nothing to see here. Nope. Oh, I think there may be some scaffolding-related thing to watch. Let's go look at that. Recently, and I know I'm abusing that word, but recently, a certain bearded fellow on the server and I were talking about how a certain someone else, who of course shall remain nameless, had made some, let's just say, not too kind comments about the scaffolding block. Apparently, they're not a fan. And so this bearded builder of the northern climes thought it might be an opportunity. For what, you might ask? An opportunity for a bit of trolling. And you know what? And I know you'll be shocked to hear this, but I agreed. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm no great fan of scaffolding myself. They're okay, I guess. I mean, sometimes I use them, sometimes I don't. But what I don't do is pass up a chance to perform a bit of silliness in the name of the almighty prank. So, I proceeded to buy up all the string on the server and made as much scaffolding as I could. Or, at least as much as I could before I started to think, whoa, I think that might be enough. And there it is, one big massive tower. And as a final touch, always try and throw the blame on someone else. Who are the mysterious scaffolding lobby? I don't know. but it's not important, just so long as it doesn't say, "Hey, Gragore did that." And this is what it looks like from a distance. How many are in that thing? You know, I'm not sure. Keeping track of that would have been a good idea, right? But based on my crafting stats, I think there's probably 85 to 90 stacks in there, or roughly 5,500. Something like that. If you want to see what it looked like when it came down, and who wouldn't, be sure to check out Jareen's video on her channel. Oh hey, guess what? Even more of the cameras got tripped this time. Here are clips from Marky's house, Gobspitz, Northern Ice Wolf, and even Frillioth's house. Is no one safe from this sadistic, sneaking swindler? Is there no one who can stop this master criminal who not only steals our goodies, but tracks mud into our houses to boot? You know what? I just need to calm down, and you know what calms me down lately? A good old-fashioned button push. Okay, we're back at the home base, and I'm going to show you my cactus flower farm, but before I do, I'm going to have to ask you to sign an NDA. Well, obviously not really, but just promise not to tell Frill about it, okay? Okay? You know what? I'll take your silence as compliance. Here we go. Now down here where the copper aging field used to be is my new cactus farm. I no longer need to age any copper, so I thought may as well put it to use. Now, earlier I showed you the basic idea behind the cactus farm on a small scale, but here you can see I went a bit bigger. Now each of these buttons on the floor will trigger the pistons in one of these banks and knock all the cactus down so it can be collected and replanted. Each of these banks is cut off from all the others so that only one bank can be triggered at a time. But, well, you know, this one over here in the corner is different. This is the master switch. This one will trigger all of them in sequence, starting over here on the left and working all the way over to the right. Now, just to be clear, this is not meant to show a server-friendly design. This is just something I did to see how cool it could look. Although I must say, it's actually nowhere near as bad as I thought it would be. When I ran this farm, and I mean there's no more need to run the farm, I already have 3 shulkers of the flowers, I only pressed the master button 3 times when others were on the server, and none of them noticed any lag when I asked about it. So, while it's not server-friendly, it's not a server breaker either. Minecraft has really done a lot over the years to reduce the lag from things like this. The one thing it is good for is to give you those good button-pressing feels. So, shall we? Let's do this! Now you have to admit, that was kind of cool, wasn't it? But while I go clean up the mess, it's time to call it a day. As always, I hope you enjoyed the video. I have been Gragore, and this has been AlphaCraft. Wherever you are and whatever you're doing, always try and find a way to make it fun. See ya!